One of the most powerful things you can do in life is take full responsibility for your emotions. Let me say this clearly. No one can make you angry, hurt, or upset unless you allow it. Your emotional state is not controlled by the actions of others. It's entirely up to you. You might be thinking, but they made me so angry. And sure, I get it. People say things, do things, and sometimes it feels like they push every button you've got. But here's the truth. When you realize that your emotional reactions are choices, you take back control. If you constantly find yourself reacting to what others do or say, you're living as a victim of your emotions. You're handing over your peace to other people's behavior. But when you begin to understand that you own your emotions, you break free from the chains of their influence. Think about it. No one is walking around with a remote control for your mind. You hold the controller. You can choose to stay calm, to choose to respond with grace, or to let their actions go without it affecting your inner peace. It's not about ignoring your feelings or pretending nothing bothers you. It's about owning how you respond. When you truly embrace emotional ownership, you shift from a place of reaction to a place of power. Instead of waiting for someone else to change their behavior so that you feel okay, you realize that it's your reaction that determines how you feel. And when you take control of that, you free yourself from the power that others' actions can have over you. It's easy to blame people for how we feel. She made me so mad, or he pushed my buttons. But what if we stopped assigning blame and realized that we always have the ability to choose our response? That's not weakness, that's strength. True strength comes in taking responsibility for your emotions. No matter how justified you might feel to be angry, by doing so, you reclaim your peace, and no one can ever steal it from you again. The way we see the world shapes how we experience it. If we continue to view others' actions as personal attacks or betrayals, we'll always feel triggered, upset, or hurt. But when we shift our perspective, everything changes. The key to never getting angry or bothered is realizing that people's behavior is more about them than it is about you. When someone cuts you off in traffic or speaks rudely to you, it's easy to think, how dare they? But in that moment, ask yourself, why are they acting this way? More often than not, it's not about you at all. That person may be dealing with stress, frustration, or personal struggles that you have no idea about. Maybe they're carrying a burden that's weighing them down, and their actions reflect their own internal battles. If you can learn to view people through this lens, recognizing that their behavior may stem from their own pain, insecurity, or fear, you'll begin to let go of the need to take things personally. You'll stop internalizing their negativity and instead become more compassionate toward them. Shifting your perspective means stepping outside of the situation and looking at the bigger picture. Maybe that person isn't deliberately trying to hurt you, but simply acting out of their own frustrations. It's like taking a step back and viewing the scene from a different angle. When you do this, you begin to see that their actions aren't an attack on your character, but a reflection of what they are going through. When you stop reacting from a place of personal offense and start approaching things from a place of empathy and understanding, you unlock a power that no one else can take from you. You no longer need to fight every battle or engage in every conflict. You simply let go of the urge to be hurt by someone else's actions because you understand that it's not about you. This shift in perspective allows you to let things roll off your back. Instead of being consumed by anger or frustration, you can respond with calm and grace. When you can step out of the cycle of taking things personally, you open the door to peace and emotional freedom. Radical compassion is more than just a polite gesture or a passing thought. It's a deep, unwavering commitment to seeing others through a lens of empathy, understanding, and unconditional love. It means recognizing that everyone, no matter how they act, is dealing with something you can't fully understand. We all have our stories, our struggles, our pains. And when we begin to practice compassion at a radical level, we stop judging others based on their behavior and start considering what might be happening beneath the surface. Think about the times when someone has lashed out at you. Maybe they were rude, dismissive, or even outright mean. The natural instinct is to defend ourselves, to feel justified in being angry or upset. But radical compassion calls us to pause. It challenges us to ask, what might they be going through? What is beneath their anger or frustration? Maybe they're carrying stress from home or battling self-doubt or feeling unseen in the world. Often, when people lash out, it's a reflection of their own inner turmoil, not a reflection of who you are. When you shift your mindset to one of radical compassion, you begin to see the humanity in everyone. You start to recognize that people's actions are rarely about you, but about their own experiences. This perspective doesn't excuse negative behavior, but it allows you to understand it rather than react to it. Instead of allowing someone's hurtful words or actions to push you into anger or defensiveness, you can respond with empathy. Radical compassion is about responding from a place of love, not from a place of defense or pride. It means choosing to show kindness and understanding, even when it feels like you don't deserve it. It's not always easy, but it's incredibly powerful. It allows you to extend grace, not just to others, but to yourself as well. When you practice compassion toward others, you also learn to be gentler with yourself. You realize that everyone is on their own journey, and sometimes people don't know how to express what they're feeling in healthy ways. This isn't about being a doormat or letting people walk all over you. Radical compassion doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or allowing others to hurt you without boundaries. Instead, it's about understanding that their actions aren't personal. And it's about responding to them in a way that reflects the love and peace you want to cultivate in your life. Setting boundaries is one of the most empowering things you can do in your life, yet many people confuse boundaries with walls. Boundaries aren't about shutting people out, isolating yourself, or creating barriers that prevent connection. Rather, they are about defining what is acceptable in your relationships and protecting your peace. Boundaries are the lines you draw that say, this is where I end and you begin. This is how I allow you to treat me, and this is what I will not tolerate. It's not about keeping people at a distance, but ensuring that the space between you and others is healthy and respectful. When you fail to set boundaries, you leave yourself open to being drained, manipulated, or disrespected. People will take advantage of you, not because they're bad people, but because they don't know your limits unless you make them clear. Without boundaries, you might find yourself saying yes to things that make you uncomfortable, agreeing to things you don't want to do, or compromising your values just to keep the peace. Over time, this leads to resentment, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect. It's about understanding your needs, recognizing your worth, and asserting that your emotional and mental well-being are just as important as anyone else's. You don't have to be rude or confrontational when setting boundaries. In fact, you can do so in a kind and respectful way. But the key is to be firm and clear. Boundaries can be as simple as saying, I need some space right now, or I'm not comfortable with that, or I won't tolerate being spoken to that way. On the flip side, walls are isolating and defensive. They are built out of fear, anger, or a desire to protect yourself from getting hurt. When you build walls, you cut yourself off from others, you prevent real connection, and you lock yourself in a cage of your own making. Walls are often built in response to past pain, but instead of healing, they create a barrier that keeps you from experiencing true peace and connection with those who respect your boundaries. The difference between boundaries and walls is intention. Boundaries are meant to preserve your peace, your energy, and your integrity while still allowing for healthy interaction with others. Walls, however, are created out of a desire to keep others away, often out of fear of being hurt again. When you set boundaries, you are still open to connection, but you are doing so in a way that honors your own needs and protects your well-being. You are drawing a line that says, I value myself enough to not let you disrespect me, but I also value the relationship enough to engage with you from a place of mutual respect. Expectations are a silent weight that we carry, often without even realizing it. We build up these mental constructs about how people should behave, how situations should unfold, and how our lives should turn out. But here's the problem. Expectations are not rooted in reality. They are rooted in our desires and assumptions about how things ought to be. When we expect something from others, whether it's an apology, a gesture of love, or a certain behavior, we set ourselves up for disappointment because people in their humanity will inevitably fall short of those expectations. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean giving up on hope or losing your desires for what you want out of life or your relationships. It means freeing yourself from the need to control how people show up, how things happen, or how outcomes unfold. It means accepting that people are on their own journey, and they might not always meet your needs in the way you expect. When you expect someone to act a certain way and they don't, it creates frustration. But when you release that expectation, you free yourself from the disappointment that follows unmet desires. Think about all the times you've been upset because someone didn't meet your expectations. Whether it was a friend not showing up when you needed them, a partner not responding the way you thought they would, or a situation not turning out the way you envisioned. How often have those moments left you feeling hurt, resentful, or even angry? The root of that pain is not necessarily the actions of the other person, but the fact that you were expecting them to behave in a way that suited your vision. Letting go of expectations is an act of self-liberation. It's about releasing the grip you have on how things should be and instead embracing how they actually are. It's about accepting that people will act in ways that make sense to them, not necessarily to you. And when you stop trying to mold them into the person you want them to be, you start to see them for who they truly are. flaws, growth, and all. This shift allows you to love people for who they are, rather than for who you want them to be. Living without rigid expectations also helps you become more adaptable to life's uncertainties. We cannot control every outcome, and the more we try to, the more frustrated we become. By releasing expectations, we learn to go with the flow, to accept the present moment for what it is, rather than fighting against it. This brings peace because we stop placing the burden of our happiness on things that are beyond our control. Instead, we find contentment in the here and now. In a world that constantly bombards us with distractions, demands, and noise, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters, our inner peace. The external world, with its chaotic moments and challenges, has a way of pulling us in all directions. We often find ourselves reacting to situations, people, and circumstances, and before we know it, our emotions are on a roller coaster ride. But there's one truth we need to internalize. Your inner peace is more valuable than any external circumstance or fleeting moment of being right. When you begin to focus on your inner peace, you shift your energy away from things outside your control and back toward what's within. You realize that no matter what happens around you, you have the power to maintain your composure. Peace is not a passive state of mind, nor is it something that happens by accident. It's a conscious choice, a daily practice, and it requires that we protect and prioritize it above everything else. One of the first steps in cultivating inner peace is learning to detach your emotional state from the actions of others. Too often, we let someone else's behavior or words dictate how we feel. If someone is rude to us, we get angry. If someone ignores us, we feel rejected. But what if we could respond to these situations from a place of peace instead of reacting from a place of hurt or frustration? When you focus on your inner peace, you recognize that your emotional reactions don't have to be dictated by external stimuli. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings or pretending nothing bothers you. It means choosing to respond with calm and intentionality no matter what happens. You learn to take a step back and ask yourself, what is this situation teaching me? How can I respond in a way that preserves my peace rather than giving it away? This shift in mindset is liberating. You stop relying on other people's actions to determine how you feel. Instead of giving away your peace every time something doesn't go according to plan, you maintain a steady internal foundation. You might still feel frustration, but it no longer has the power to consume you. You learn to acknowledge the emotion, but you don't let it control your response. Another key aspect of focusing on your inner peace is practicing mindfulness. Being present in the moment is one of the most effective ways to find calm in the midst of chaos. We often spend our time either regretting the past or worrying about the future, both of which rob us of the peace we can experience right now. By anchoring ourselves in the present moment, we allow ourselves to experience life as it is, without the stress of trying to control every outcome. When you truly immerse yourself in the present, you are not preoccupied with what could go wrong or what has already happened. Instead, you find peace in simply being. Furthermore, inner peace requires intentional self-care. It's not enough to just hope that peace will come when things settle down or when the storm passes. You have to actively nurture your mind, body, and spirit. This means creating space for relaxation, reflection, and activities that restore your energy. Whether it's through prayer, meditation, exercise, or simply taking time to be alone with your thoughts, prioritizing your well-being is essential to maintaining peace. Self-care also means setting boundaries. You cannot protect your peace if you constantly allow others to overstep their limits with you. Boundaries are not walls, they are lines in the sand that you draw to preserve your emotional and mental health. By setting boundaries, you tell the world that your peace is sacred and that you are not willing to sacrifice it for the comfort or convenience of others. Finally, focusing on your inner peace requires letting go of the need to control everything. We can't control the actions of others, the outcome of every situation, or even the unpredictable events that life throws our way, but we can control how we respond. When you release the need for control, you allow peace to flow freely. Trust in the process of life. Trust that even in the midst of challenges, you can still find peace within yourself. In focusing on your inner peace, you stop chasing external validation or approval. You stop waiting for others to affirm you or give you the reassurance you seek. Instead, you find peace in knowing that you are enough, just as you are. Anger is one of the most intense and raw emotions we experience. And while it's often seen as something negative or destructive, it can be harnessed and channeled into something powerful. The key to transforming anger into action is recognizing that anger itself isn't inherently bad. It's what you choose to do with it that determines whether it will be a force for harm or a catalyst for positive change. When you feel anger rising, it's often because something has violated your sense of justice, personal space, or values. It's a response to something that feels unfair or out of alignment with who you are. Instead of allowing anger to spiral into frustration, resentment, or bitterness, you have the opportunity to take that emotional energy and use it as fuel for action. Anger is energy. It's a signal that something needs to change, either within yourself or in the world around you. Rather than letting it sit and fester, turn it into a driving force for improvement. The first step in transforming anger into action is to pause and recognize the emotion without judgment. Too often we try to suppress or ignore anger, thinking that it's something we shouldn't feel. But the truth is, anger is a natural human emotion that everyone experiences. When you can sit with it, acknowledge it, and understand the root cause, you create space to move through it in a constructive way. You might ask yourself, why am I angry? What specifically triggered this feeling? This self-awareness is crucial in deciding how to respond to the anger rather than reacting impulsively. Once you've acknowledged your anger, the next step is to find a way to channel it into something productive. Often, anger stems from a desire for change, a need to make things right, correct an injustice, or improve a situation. Instead of lashing out or internalizing the emotion, turn it into action. For example, if you're angry about an unfair situation at work or in your personal life, you can use that anger as motivation to address the issue directly, have a difficult conversation, or seek out a solution that benefits everyone involved. When you channel anger into problem solving, you move from being a victim of the emotion to taking control and using it to drive change. Another way to transform anger into action is by using it as a source of creativity. Many artists, musicians, and writers have used their anger as a catalyst for creating some of their most powerful work. Anger can be a source of clarity. It helps you identify what truly matters to you. If you feel angry about something in the world, whether it's injustice, inequality, or any other issue, use that passion to fuel your creativity. Whether through writing, art, public speaking, or community activism, you can transform the energy of anger into a force for raising awareness, inspiring others, and creating a movement for change. Turning anger into action also means making the choice to release negativity and focus on solutions. Anger is often a response to a feeling of powerlessness, but when you take action, you reclaim your power. You shift from being passive and reactive to being proactive and empowered. This is especially important in situations where you can't control what has happened to you, but you can control how you respond. Instead of letting anger consume you and waste your energy, you channel it into a positive and productive outlet. Additionally, transforming anger into action can also involve self-reflection and growth. Anger often arises from a deeper emotional place, such as hurt, fear, or a feeling of being misunderstood. When you take the time to explore these underlying emotions, you can turn your anger into a learning opportunity. You might realize that your anger is a signal to heal something within yourself, or that you need to set clearer boundaries, communicate better, or confront unresolved issues. In this sense, anger becomes a tool for self-improvement. Finally, when you transform anger into action, you not only change your own life, but you also have the potential to positively impact others. Anger, when harnessed with purpose, can lead to moments of profound change in communities, relationships, and even within yourself. It becomes a tool for empowerment rather than destruction. You stop being controlled by anger and start using it to fuel the kind of life and world you want to create.